see?
Yeah.
God damn it. It's already glued on there too. I mean, it shouldn't be hard to take off, but...
We'll do that last. I'm not going to put it together until I get back to the store anyway. Tomorrow.
Yeah, it's up. Cool. Alright, we'll do an introduction. Let's get a few people in here. Hello, hello, hi, hello. Hello, Edge. Let's all make love. Alright, cool. Alright, so I'm the guest appearance today for Lewis. As you can see, he's very happy to be on vacation with Pepe. Myself, I'm Chris Long, if none of you all know who I am. I usually stream like on my small channel. I do a lot of iPhone repairs, some MacBook stuff. Mostly iPhone though. I don't do as much MacBook as Lewis does. He knows quite a bit more than I do. Hopefully the microphone is working. If it's not, let me know. I'm sure somebody will say it isn't, even though it is. The man behind me is my lovely assistant from Nashville, Z. Z comes down once a week with some stuff to do, and we're working on his stuff right now. Yeah, I agree, Casey. Lewis has been really helpful for a lot of us. I started off, I got into this because of Lewis. I actually picked up a MacBook, I don't know how many years ago it was, maybe 6 years ago. It was when Lewis had first started his YouTube channel, and I bought a MacBook online that was liquid damaged, and I searched where the liquid damage was on the board and trying to figure out what would cause no green light, and Lewis's video was one of the first ones that came up. So, what's going on, Rob? Okay, cool. I'm glad the mic's working. There may be a little bit of a drone because I have a fan over here to my right that kind of blows air to move stuff around, so if it is a little drony, sorry about that. I don't have the setup Lewis does. I'm small time compared to him, so this is what I got to work with. Just going over what I'm doing right now. I'm actually working on an iPhone 6 Plus. This is touch disease. It's a common issue that's been going on for the last 3 or 4 years now, I guess. I don't know how old the iPhone 7 is, or 6 is now, but it's been going on a while. The iPhones, just like the MacBooks that Lewis bitches about all the time, have the same common issues. They all have faults that it's Apple's issue that they've created, but they don't want to blame it on themselves because Apple's the almighty. So they blame it on their customers, and then they fight it in court, and then eventually they lose, and then 4 years after the phone's been released, they say, just a small amount of these may have been affected, so I just want you all to know we'll replace it for $150, which is what they were doing for these. How you doing, George? My bassy thuds. Sorry. I'll have lots of thuds probably. But anyway, let's get into the 6 Plus. So if you all haven't seen, I know Lewis doesn't do many iPhone repairs on stream. He's a MacBook streamer, so this is a little smaller. For reference, I don't know if I have a dime or a quarter or a penny. What's something I can reference? I have a golden dollar here somewhere. But here's a golden dollar. It's a little large. I wish I had a dime to kind of show you. This one's dirty because I use it as a heat sink. But a lot of the stuff we're going to be working on, there's my finger, is very small. So it's a little bit smaller than what Lewis normally works on. What's up, Greg? But I've let myself go. Yeah, Lewis is looking a little rough today, so don't mind him. But anyway, I'll take this chip back off. I haven't soldered it yet. This chip here is the Touch IC on an iPhone 6 Plus. It commonly fails due to deflection or bends in the board. The 6 Plus had bin gate. That was the big controversy. Bin gate, though, is the minor issue because most people aren't bending their phones in half. The main issue is the boards flex, and when these boards do flex, they cause board issues because the board is rigidly mounted to the frame, and when the frame moves, so does the motherboard. So the points in which these bend, let me see that 6 plus frame for this one. It doesn't matter which one. This is so on the 6 plus, these have common deflection points. What magnification am I using? I believe it's about the same amount. I don't know that Lewis zooms in as much because we work on a little smaller scale. This is pretty much a 45x, so it's a 90x 90x headset with a 0.5 Barlow, which cuts it in half, so 45x. I also have a 0.7 Barlow, but I don't use it very often. So the damage that happens on these phones is from the frame. They have a weak point here where the buttons are, and they have a weak point here where the SIM tray is. So where these phones bend is they tend to bend around points that are weak in the frame. So you've got an opening here where the SIM tray is, and then up towards the top you have your power button, and on the opposite side you have your volume button. So when these tend to flex, they flex upon those points. Coincidentally, the points where these fail happens to be the volume and power buttons sit right on this line here. And the 6 Plus also has a common failure with searching issues, which falls on this line where the SIM tray is. And right here is where the main chip that controls your cell signal for your phone. And it does the same damage that we're repairing here, where it actually breaks, and I'll zoom in so you can see it, where we put a jumper wire to kind of help support this pad. It actually breaks the connection between these pads and their vias. So we run a wire over to the pad to help solidify that connection, and that way you don't have a break like that. What's up, Martin? So anyway, getting back, my streams are a little different than Lewis's. I know Lewis likes to talk about stuff, and he's probably far more entertaining as far as the gab goes, just talking about random stuff, but I tend to kind of be explanatory in my streams. The most I want to get people to really get out of my streams is to understand why things happen, how to fix them, and really it showcases how dishonest Apple is with a lot of their customers in a lot of these repairs, unfortunately. Do they fail even if used within a case? Pam, if you use them in a case, it helps, but it doesn't make them foolproof. I mean, the OtterBox and stuff that they make cases that are rigid, OtterBox being the main one that most people know about, it helps quite a bit, but it's still not foolproof. We had an iPhone 6 Plus come in yesterday. It's original purchase from the time it was made till now that just now had touch disease, and that person had kept it in an OtterBox the entire time, but it still formed it. You have to join Discord so I can please, bro. That's fine. So I'm going to put this chip back on. I've revolved this chip with leaded solder to help lower the working temperature. The main thing on these boards, unlike MacBooks, is you have to avoid too much heat. Heat is an enemy, especially since on the opposite side of this chip is the CPU. And CPUs on these things are underfilled and they do not like heat. So I'm just going to heat this chip up until it sits down in place. Alright, it moved into place. Okay, I tapped it, it came back. We're just going to let it cool off. Still on Android? Yeah, I'm an Android fan, but Chris, you make me want a gunsmithing school. Oh, okay, for the beard. Yeah. This failure is also common on the 7 series. I'm sure a few of you have now heard of audio IC, or audio disease, or I don't know what they're calling it, looping disease or something like that. The looping thing was on the older iOS's. Now the newer ones, they don't have that as much. And the reason I look up is Chad's up there. So if you're like, why the fuck's he looking up there? That's why.
Yeah, so they call it lupus.
They call it lupus. It's never lupus. But the practices of Apple extend beyond their computers, and this is one of the most glaring issues that they've had. The 7 series having audio problems is just as bad as this is. So they are probably going through a class action lawsuit over this. They'll probably release a program in another year and say, oh, we're sorry, there was a small amount. They've done that now with the iPhone 7s that have searching problems, but why is Lewis not moving? Yes, it's definitely a cutout. Rapid cool technology. We use a little bit of it, but with these boards, you want to avoid a lot of heating and cooling at such a rapid pace. We're working with a much smaller board here. Take this in comparison with what Lewis is normally working with. We're a little smaller, so heat's a little more effective on these boards than the larger MacBook boards. But rapid cool technology is still used, just not quite as often. Yes, the house MD. Hello, Lewis Rossman, Random Live. Hello, Sonia. LG had their own problems, Swift. Now that you speak about it, the LG, I don't know if they've sorted them, but on the LG G4 all the way through the G6, I believe, the V20s and V30s had problems with the CPU stack. So the way they're made is they have a CPU and then the RAM's actually stacked on top of it. They call it an SoC because it's the CPU, GPU, and RAM all in one piece. The RAM stack on those actually breaks connection, and they cause boot looping where it won't load the OS up. There's ways to get data off those on encrypted versions versus non-encrypted versions. I actually have an LG G2 here that we're going to pull data off of. That it's not a looping problem, it's actually a password forgotten, and we're going to pull the chip since it's not encrypted and just read it directly. But the G3, G4, G5, G4 and G5 had it more than the G3s did. The V10s had it, the V20s had it, and some V30s have it. I don't know many G6s that have it. What's up, Manuel? It's normal that the stream is on 2 channels. Normally, yes. Lewis streams. Well, I also do stream on YouTube and Twitch. The Nexus series, yeah. And Nexus is made by LG, so common issue too. Well, Miles, stick around. Sorry that I'm disappointing for you, but stick around. We enjoy having you here. Alright, so we put this chip back on. Let's test it out and see if touch works. Let's see the screen for that one. So if I know quite a few of you all probably have not seen my stream. A few of you have. I'm based out of Kentucky. You can probably tell by the accent. I've known Lewis for a little while. I've only met Lewis a few times, but he's always been nice. And he's definitely been very helpful for the YouTube stuff. He really gives back to a lot of the smaller streamers, so really appreciate all he's done for us. Alright. Let's turn this phone on and see what we've got. So the phone, I've got it hooked up to my power supply. It's just hooked up to cable here. It's turning on. We'll see. I'll read chat while we're waiting. Is it worth repairing iPhone 6s, seeing the resale value? NPR, it has driven down the repair cost on them. So these repairs used to be $100. Now we do them for $60. The phones, iPhone 6s, depending on size, still sell from anywhere from $150 to $200. So, I mean, if you're buying a phone, it's more cost effective to fix it if you still enjoy using your phone. If it's like if you're looking to upgrade, it's not worth it. I mean, if you're gonna upgrade anyway, there's no sense. We're in Kentucky, Bowling Green. Do you get consent to touch PP Bus? Well, lucky for me, PP Bus does not exist on the iPhone. It's VCC main. The PP Bus is only left for those who work on Macs. So luckily we don't have any legal restraints on how we touch the iPhone. We can touch it in any way we choose. So now that we have the phone on, we want to test the touch function of this phone. Some of these phones come in with no touch function at all. Some of them have like partial touch that works sometimes. We just want to make sure we have full touch all the way across, which we do. So this one is fixed and ready to go. The purpose of this jumper is for rigidity and for longevity of the repair. Just reflowing the chip, just trying to get that pad reconnected doesn't always work. What will happen in the long run on these is that connection will break again and you have no touch again. So Apple tried to fix this problem by just squirting a shit ton of underfill under these chips, which is a dumb idea because one, it doesn't work, and two, it makes the repair twice as hard. So this repair here, I would at least 2 years, if not a lifetime, that this thing will last, if not longer. I've only had maybe a handful of returns in the 3 or 4 years that I've been doing, so. There's that one. What's next? Another touch IC. Damn. Just blowing it. Manuel, yeah, I miss out on it stuff too. Corvette Town, yes it is. The Corvette plant is located in Bowling Green. If you've never seen a Corvette, just come to Bowling Green. There's 14 million of them. People drive them everywhere. It's like seeing a taxi cab in New York, I guess. Let me read back. Somebody said hi. I wanted to say hi. Vince, hi. How are you doing? Sorry if I missed stuff. Lewis said to ignore most of chat because it's just going to fly by a lot faster than I'm used to. Is there any other chat he's reading? I'm reading Twitch also. iPhone 7 Plus Lightning port is not passing audio. Very selective on which charger cable to charge, even when the Apple branded one might be broken. The iPhone 7 Plus, you could have a bad charge port. It could be TriStar. The audio issue could possibly be audio IC too, because audio IC has two lines directly connected to the charge port that pass through. Actually, I should have a 7 here coming up. I can show you which lines actually fail. So what I'm peeling off here is an EMI shield that's made out of fabric. It has copper woven into it. I don't know that these phones really suffer much from EMI interference, but they put them on there. Where from? Which state? Kentucky is where I'm from. Alright, so let's pull this chip off. The way I do these is we're just going to hold the chip and we're going to drop it. So I'm going to use the weight of the motherboard to pull this chip away as I heat the solder. And what that does is it allows this chip to come away from the board as soon as the solder is liquid state. It's almost going to look dry when it breaks free. And that's because the solder just barely reaches its melting temperature. As you can see, a lot of those look dry in color. Sorry, the exposure is probably a little bright. I don't know if I can adjust that down or not. Hold on. Okay. So hopefully that'll help out a little. But as you can see, these solder joints look pretty dry. They're kind of gray and discolored. That's because of the way I dropped the chip. Main reason I do that is to prevent heat on these boards. Like I said, right on the other side of this thing is the CPU, which is right here. And if you flip it over, we're working right on the back side of it. So we want to really kill down the heat on it. The internet is killing local accents. Am I at Lewis's office? No, I'm actually at my office. I've never been to Lewis's office. I've actually never been, well, I take that back. I've been to New York City, but I've never been downtown. I do need a shave, actually. So if you all want to donate money for a shave, Lewis Rossman, need to shave my beard. It's gotten very long while I was on vacation. And now that I'm back, I need to invest in some razors. So I'm using micro tweezers here. Lewis, I don't think even owns a pair of these, maybe? Somebody in a shop may, but I don't believe he does. And what I'm doing here is just knocking all the old solder down to where we can put on a new chip, well, not new chip, reball chip with our jumper. Where did I learn all this? Actually, kind of self-taught. Jessa's streams from iPad Rehab. I learned a little bit from her when I was starting out. I mean, I've had a lot of help. I'm not acting like I've figured all this out on my own. I've learned from a lot of people above me that that still know more than I do, and probably will always know more than I do. But a lot of this is just kind of watching somebody do it, like Lewis, like Jessa, and seeing what they do. And I've had help from Larry Johnson, who's kind of close to me, and Lauren Nunley, who's in Mississippi. We all kind of do the same kind of repairs. Lewis has tweezers. He trashed them. Oh, okay. I mean, tweezers are not, the hot tweezers are not very useful for MacBook repair, that's for sure. They just don't carry enough heat. They barely carry enough heat for doing this type of work. Like ground pads, which this one's a ground pad, it dominates these tweezers. And I've got them set to maximum heat. Where's the iPhone 4? I actually had one here earlier. I do have an iPhone 3G. Where's that battery at?
Huh? That's swollen up.
This was the battery that came out of an iPhone 3GS today. Looks like a pillow. It's very hard. It's very swollen. We had to get data off of one that was... I don't know how the board didn't break. The board is permanently like warped into a C shape. He uses the tweezers as scrapers only. Hey, Terrible Fire. I'm the new bearded Lewis Rossman. How do we repair devices we don't have schematics for? Well, in iPhones we have most of the schematics. There are some boards we don't have schematics for, and you kind of have to use common circuits. So most backlight circuits are kind of the same across all generations of devices, even between like laptops and phones. Sometimes it's really hard because there's certain circuits that are made specifically for certain devices, and it's hard to work on them. But you just have to use common circuit layouts to kind of diagnose with. Lewis is in the house. The beard suits me. Well, thank you. Alright, so what we're going to do here is we're going to fix this problem. So I'll zoom in here a little bit as close as I can get on mine. Hopefully y'all can see that. Yeah, you can see it. So there's a via right here that runs down a trace to this pad here. This pad is called M1 in the schematic. They're labeled A through N, I believe, or I don't know. M or N, well yeah, N. So M would be our last pad. M1 here actually breaks away from the board, so what we do is we scrape at the via, which goes into the motherboard. So a via is just a trace or a point on one top of the layer that goes down to the next layer. So you really want to go through the layer like this, slowly, and that way, Duck Dynasty, Lewis, that's probably the most accurate description. So what I'm going to do here is scrape the top of this via to expose the copper. So now the copper is exposed. Close enough to kiss the rose? Yes. My ringtone for our business phone is Kissed by a Rose by Seal. Hopefully no copyright strikes get thrown on this video because of it. they have it on mine, so I'm just tinning that via. I want some solder on top of it, that way when I put my jumper wire, I can attach it easily. Alright, so here's my giant wire that we use, Bourbon Lewis. So this wire is 43 gauge. It's slightly smaller than human hair. I would pull a piece of my own hair out, but I don't want to hurt myself. See if one comes out. No, not happening. "30-year-old electronic bench repair tech of the telecommunications electronics." Well, welcome. So we're going to take our wire and we're just going to tack it down to our via. So this wire is enamel coated, it's magnet wire. So anything that's covered in what looks to be copper is actually a plastic coating, which I burn off with the solder. And that will give us a protective layer so this doesn't short to anything. And now I've got it bent over to our pad. And I'm just going to hold the wire down in place on top of the pad. And then come in and touch this with our tweezers until this takes. Alright, so it's taking solder. And our via is soldered. So now we've essentially made our own bridge there that will protect us. Thank you. I'm glad the beard rocks. It's years in the making. Uh-oh, Hi has made it in the chat. Alright, so now that I've got my jumper made, I'm going to cut my wire, get rid of the excess, and we'll clean this up. Hey Tim, what's up? TCRS is here. It's Tim. If you all haven't seen his channel, you should check him out too. I don't get to stream as much right now, but I'm hoping to get back into it once we move into our new store location. So I used to stream daily, but I haven't done that in a while. What phone do I use? I used to have a Huawei P20. I now have a Samsung Note 9. Huawei has been in some shit lately. I like their phones. Honestly, I don't know if the whole backdoor access through Huawei software is true or not. Honestly, I could care less if China sees my dick pics, so they're more than welcome to them. I think they make probably some of the best phones as far as the value goes on the market. But unfortunately, trade wars right now have kind of limited their options, and who knows, I mean, they may have some backdoor access to their phone, so. Tim, yeah, I mean, steady hands really helps out. One key to kind of remember when you're working on stuff this small, holding things in the air is difficult, so it's best to try to pin things down to the board whenever you're working on them. That way it mitigates that shaking that you might have. If I try to hold things in the air, I'll still shake a little bit too. Especially when you got people watching you, it can cause you to be a little more nervous. Alright, so now we're going to reball our chip. It's tough to make a living in New York City, that's the truth. So there's our chip, our overexposed chip there. So we'll put a little bit of the Rossmann Special Flux on there. I still buy my flux through Lewis because I still support him. I still subscribe to his MacBook Facebook or MacBook forum, which I use occasionally, which has been a big help at times. Google is removing the Google Play Store. Yeah, they're blocking Google services from the new models of Huawei phones, not the old models. Touch IC, yeah. I've done, how many Touch ICs have we done today?
Just today?
Yeah.
6.
Nice.
You're on number 6.
Nice. So 6 Touch ICs today. How many audio ICs were there?
3.
3 audio ICs. Alright, so that's cleaned up. Now we'll reball it. It's your birthday today? Well, happy birthday, Catherine. And for all those that are saying Lewis is not here, you can obviously see Lewis is right below me. He's just really good at sitting still. So for those who are saying that Lewis isn't here, it's completely untrue. Lewis has joined us. Alright, so let's go ahead and reball this. This is one thing that Lewis hates doing, is reballing things, even with stencils that are made for him. I personally enjoy reballing things. I think it's one of the prettier things in this industry that we get to do. It's crazy to watch all these tiny microscopic solder balls turn into larger balls, because everyone likes good balls. What is privacy? Even Walmart is opening phone repair stores there in Canada. Get out while you can. Calm down. So we've got our chip reballed. Got some clean balls with some hair in them. Got to get rid of that hair. We don't want hairy balls. Corporate espionage with China. Yeah, I could see that. I mean, if they get phones in the hands of people that have power, they could definitely use it for malicious purpose if they have access to the phones. For most standard consumers, who cares? I mean, I guess you get your occasional customer that comes in and says the CIA or whoever is spying on them. I get those every now and then. I always wonder to myself when those people come in, if the CIA is spying on you, what do you have? Like, what interest do you have that they really are concerned with? Or NSA or whoever. It always cracks me up when people come in with computers with tape over the front camera. Failing to ignore the fact that if somebody was really getting into a computer and accessing that, they can just access your microphone. Who needs video when they can listen to you? So I'm going to tack this back in place with the flux. I just want the flux to boil for a second. Alright, and I'm going to turn my heat down just to put this back on. Round of applause. The like button. Alright, so we're going to reflow this into place. And then we're going to test it out. Okay, so the chip is settled into place. Alright, nudged it, it came back. So it should be liquid. The next war on U.S. soil between citizens and corporations. That's a possibility. I mean, tensions among employees has risen, especially since people view greed as a bad thing again. I think greed at a certain level is bad. I think my views may differ a little bit from Lewis's politically, but that's what the U.S. is about. Mic is good? Thanks. I use a little cheap-ass Samsung mic. SAMSON. Get some oil for my chair. Why, you don't like that? I've had this chair for like 4 years. I'm sorry. Is this Touch IC? Yes, this is actually the second one. Rehot CPU? Maybe. Can I see the screen? Psst. Stop looking at naked chicks and give me the screen, dog.
Not naked.
Oh.
I'm wearing pantsuits.
Pantsuits. You're looking at pictures of Hillary Clinton?
No, I'm watching Congress.
Oh, God. What are they talking about?
Somebody did something. Somebody didn't do something.
Alright, so let's test this one out. Same way we did the other phone. I'm going to press the power button on my cable here. Alright, let's turn it on. More flux. Flux make magic even on chair. Flux tends to attract a lot of dirt, so I don't know that it would work well. Maybe for a little while. Betty coughs again now. Yeah, my throat tickles talking this much. Need to stay hydrated. This is fan spin for us, by the way. This guy. Fan spin. Okay, so at our passcode screen, what's the passcode? Z. Passcode.
Well, that one.
A. Yeah, the stream's for the
1016.
ASMR. The fan is specifically for ASMR.
Asthma?
Asthma? 1016?
That's what it says.
That's not it.
Well, my friend.
I'll test it on the main screen.
Yeah.
It's good. It's solid. The spraying makes you cough. Is it good to breathe? No, breathing actually leads to living, and you don't want that. Audio IC? Hell yeah. So now we get to look at the other problem.
Call it Nashville lupus.
This is lupus right here. So lupus disease. If I can grab it with my fucked up tweezers. So this guy right here is our audio IC, big shiny bitch right there. Same fault happens with these chips as the Touch ICs. White lithium for the chair. Yeah, I'll have to get some for it. So we're going to take this chip off the same way we do the other ones. Took 5 minutes and it revolved. Yeah, I mean, you do enough of these repairs. Chill dude man guy. You do enough of these repairs, you tend to get pretty quick at them. So I'm using my tweezers that I've hooked. That will hopefully help me keep from dropping this chip. So I'm just heating this up until the solder melts to the point where it'll drop the chip away from the board. I guess technically the board drops away from the chip. Should drop away soon. Okay, there it goes. So there's our audio IC and all our solder connections under that chip. C12 only, all four. Actually, I've started doing C12 and D12. So the all four is still viable if you have issues with audio for the lightning port, because I'll show you the two lines that go to the lightning port on the iPhone. Okay, so I just touched that with my solder and actually C12 has come off, so it was broken. I'm not touching the board with the tweezers at all. I'm just letting, I've got a ball of solder on the bottom there, and I just take that and I wipe it across the pads to pick up any of the lead-free solder. So we've had two NC pads come off. So this one's had a decent amount of deflection in the frame. So let's check that. It looks pretty cleaned up, as much as we'll need it. Everyone likes the drop method. I love the drop method. What temp am I using? I'm using 350 degrees Celsius. Is it accurate 350? Probably not. It's probably something else, but that's what my meter says, or what my readout says, so that's what I'm rocking. Yes, the audio IC issues are caused by flexing. The reason is because, again, the weak points on these boards are the SIM trays and the power button. Power button not so much in the 7 series, more the SIM tray. If you look, the weakest point, there's no shield here, there's no shield here. So this board wants to flex along these points. Well, if you follow this around, so we'll follow this around the edge of the board. This is where the SIM tray is. We follow it around, and it comes right here, right along this row in the audio IC, and that's where our failure occurs. Blah, blah, blah. The tweezers are set to 750 Fahrenheit. I don't know what that is in Celsius. Do the conversion. Google's your friend. The highlighted messages don't show up? Oh, okay. Yeah, Paul, I've noticed that it doesn't match exactly what's going on over there. WD-40 doesn't work well on toast. I assume that's experience talking. I will accept nothing else but experience there. Alright, so I'm going to clean this up a little more and then we're going to run our jumpers. Alright, so while we're here, I'll show you. So whenever you have audio problems with the lightning port, this pad here, this trace, and this pad here and this trace are the two that fail. So these go directly to your lightning port. I think they may stop in TriStar, I'm not sure exactly, but they are part of the TriStar charge port circuit. And this is what carries your audio back and forth from there. The other jumper that a lot of people run is this bypass cap. Sometimes this pad can fail, it's not as common. The pads we're going to jump is obviously C12 here that is broken off. That's the one that causes looping disease, or lupus as we're calling it now. Lupus disease. So normally what we'll do here is we'll scrape away this trace, run a wire down and create a new pad. And then recently, I'm not the first one to see this, but we've seen a lot more of issues with D12 lifting. It goes straight to a via under the pad. What we're going to do is run a wire from D12 over to D, E, F, G12. So G12 here will be jumped to D12. These share the same line on the iPhone, so we'll have a jumper between these two to kind of help D12 stay in place. If D12 is not there, you'll have the same exact symptoms as a missing C12. So we're just going to scrape this trace back, exposing the copper. It's never lupus. Well, in this case, it is lupus. So a giant amount of flux there. Giant in terms of what we're working with here. And we're just going to tin this trace up. So now we've got a nice tin trace. Sorry if the autofocus on the camera keeps going in and out. It's always lupus. 350 degrees C on the airflow, and the iron is 750 degrees Fahrenheit. M&M is the main issue with D12, and that's why we have to fix it. So 750 Fahrenheit to C, that's 398 degrees Celsius on my iron. So 400 on my iron. The tweezers don't carry as much heat, so I run them pretty hot. I think this unit max is at 800 or something like that. So let's see. Which MacBook is the worst of all time? No pressure. The 12-inch MacBook is the worst one of all time because it's an iPad with a screen and keyboard, and people paid thousands of dollars for it. Expose my copper and thing my trace. I didn't thing your trace. I touched it. I rubbed all over it. Got it all nice and shiny too. Shined it right up. The Dirty Dozen. There it is. Alright, so we need to now tin our wire and create our pad that is now missing. So C12 is missing. We need to add C12 back. So our wire is now tinned. I'm going to sit it down in place where C12 is. So now it's tacked into place. It's sitting a little high for me though, so I want to get that down. There we go, it's a little better. There we go, that's where I want it to be. So now that wire is running straight down the trace. So we have good contact. How did I get my first start? I started out doing this in my kitchen. So I started fixing motherboards on MacBooks in my kitchen while watching Lewis's videos. I think when I started watching Lewis, he had maybe 1,000 or 2 subscribers. He was a really big help because literally the money I made off that first MacBook repair, I bought more MacBooks that were liquid damaged and fixed those. And it has since led to the ability to have my own stores. So a lot of my credit has to go to Lewis for that initial information that he gave me. How much does that fix you just did on the iPhone 7 cost? For businesses we charge, well, for local business like Z here, we charge him $80 because he disassembles the whole thing for us and reassembles it. For other businesses we charge $100, and for customers we charge anywhere from $125 to $150 depending on how nice they are, because some people are assholes. Far less than the $300 that Apple currently charges their customers to replace the phone if they don't have Apple Care. Because it's not Apple's fault that you use your phone. It wasn't designed for that. Why are you using it as a phone? Yeah, Lewis has been on YouTube for a long time. Okay, so we now have our trace laid down for C12. I'll clean that up so you can see it before we do the D12 jumper. You remember your first beer? Me too. My first beer, I hated it because I hate beer. My last video was 2 months ago. I know it was. I was talking about that earlier. I've got to get back into streaming, which I actually will be doing in July when we get into our new location. So there you can now see our new jumper / pad that we've created. If my camera will focus on it. It loves to focus on everything but what I want it to focus on. So there's our jumper pad that we've created. Now we need to jump D12 down to G12. I've lost my piece of wire, so I'm going to have to grab another one. I like how you guys get a job. Yeah, I mean, I think a lot of... I mean, that's specifically why I make the videos I do on YouTube, is to help other people and to educate people about that they can fix their devices. Apple puts out a lot of misinformation that they... Like, the fucking battery I just showed you. Wherever the hell I put it. Like this. Like, this swollen-ass 3GS battery. Like, this is dangerous, but it's not blown up on me. I'm squeezing it. It's not exploded. This shit's not just going to blow up in your hands if you open it. They just spread a lot of misinformation to people and tell them that something's going to happen that's not. Let me guess, you have to go.
No.
Oh.
I would never leave you like that.
Yeah, Lewis's channel has grown quite a bit. I think his activism against Apple and the notoriety he's gotten from it has really helped that, and I'm glad that that's happened because it's brought light to the bullshit that some of these bigger companies are doing to people. Especially like when we went to Nashville, they were putting through a right to repair bill, but it was kind of saddening because I met Larry Johnson down there. I met Lewis, Jessa, Michael Oberdick, who works at Elevate Supply. I met all of them there, and we all had high hopes that something would come of the Nashville right to repair bill because there were several backers on the bill. And at the last second, they kind of fucked us over because they changed the bill to only encompass farming. Because farmers have a lot of electronic equipment now that is locked out from them and they can't service their own stuff. If you've seen any of the motherboard videos that they've done on farming, you can see they're running into the same problems that we are. But the problem is our understanding when we went in was that the bill would encompass both farming and consumer electronics. And at the last second, they told us that they were dropping that section of the bill to focus on farming because they felt it could be passed. And it was really like a gut shot to think that like people don't give a shit. Like the only thing they're worried about is when it affects people who matter to them money-wise. Like the farmers matter to them economy-wise because of how much it really affects them financially as a state. Which I get it, money drives everything, but it's still shitty that someone would pull something out of a bill because they're afraid that it won't pass because Apple had come the day before we were there and pretty much lied to people. We had several senators that were against the bill involving consumer electronics, and then we explained it to them face to face. I felt like a few of them didn't understand what we were coming from, and after speaking to us, they had a completely different view on what we were saying. Yeah, I agree. Farmers are getting screwed over by the same thing we're getting screwed over by. Intellectual property rights are just way too encompassing as they sit. Yeah, farmers are definitely being affected by the trade war. That's true. So again, with this one, just like we do on the 6 Plus, I'm putting down some conformal coating. Main purpose of this is not necessarily to cover up any of the trace or anything to prevent shorting, but more so to keep the wire in place whenever I place the chip back on. That way it doesn't shift on me. Doesn't happen all the time, but it does sometimes. Lewis has got to stop staring at you. Doesn't Lewis look happy being on vacation? Look at him. I don't think I've ever seen him that happy. He's on vacation. He's got a big smile on his face. He's feeling good. Lobbying should be outlawed. I agree. Not in the sense of lobbying like individually, but I feel that big money interests lobby in ways that most individual consumers aren't going to be able to, and I think that gives an unfair advantage to big money. I'm all for lobbying in individual cases, but when somebody comes in and they lobby in the sense of, hey, you hook us up, we'll donate to your re-election committee for next year, blah blah blah, that's just bullshit to me. Like, that's just legal bribery. What's going on, man? I haven't gotten anything figured out on it yet. I just have to give you a call once I do. It'd probably be some like midday tomorrow or so, but I'll give you a shout as soon as I do. All right, man. No problem. I've been soldering these wires for several years now. I should be decent at it by now. Yes, sir. Yes.
You should tell them about your courses that you're going to
My training courses?
Yeah.
Yeah, I do some micro soldering training. I do small stuff though. Jess offers bigger classes. I've been doing like one-on-one or like just a couple people at a time. That way I can try to explain better what you're learning and what you have to do. So if anybody's ever interested in it, just let me know. I try to give a pretty good overview of what I do, what I know. I've been trying to find free time to get into the CPU reballing stuff that's really taken over the industry, but I just haven't had much free time to really work on them. Got to do the stuff that pays the bills.
never enough hours in the day.
Yeah, we need to vote to extend days to 48 hours. So one day is now 48 hours, so I can get all my shit done. So there's our chip all cleaned up. We'll get our stencil for it. Where did Lewis vacation to? I'm not sure. I'm pretty sure he stayed in the U.S. I know somebody had said he was going to China or something, but maybe he's just vacationing in New York and he didn't actually go anywhere. Is he in Hawaii? I don't know. I didn't even ask him. I try not to pry into what he's doing. The man needs some time away from all of us. So we have one solder ball that didn't sit down. Let's see if we can get it to sit down in there. Looks like it may have something blocking it. Let me check. Try one more revol on it and see what it does. Yeah, so this one here has a piece of dirt or something under it, so I'm going to have to clean that out. Hopefully without messing the chip up here. So we definitely have some junk on there. Alright, so in these situations, instead of putting it back in the stencil, I'll try to just drop a ball on there. The GPU reballing repair stuff. I have the equipment to do that stuff, but I don't mess with it. We have been doing quite a few of the MacBook Pro GPU bypasses that Lewis talked about from DOS Dude. I've been doing those for a little while after I found the old article that DOS Dude had first posted on when he was talking about bypassing the GPU mucks. It's been very successful. We've seen no issues with them at all. They'll do updates, they'll do all the normal functions. I don't know how they handle like editing and stuff. I'm sure it's not as good because obviously you're not running on a dedicated GPU, but for most people they don't use those MacBooks. At least if you're serious into editing, you're not using a MacBook from 2010, 2011. Let's see if I can get this on here without reflowing it into the nether regions. My chip's going to end up bouncing away from me. So these solder balls are 0.2 millimeters. And I just lost it. There it is. So these are very small. And that just blew off. What's the difference between flux and solder paste? Solder paste is made up of a lot of tiny solder balls, and it has flux mixed into it to promote those solder balls to join with a clean joint. Flux is just flux. It's there to create a clean solder joint by removing any impurities in the joint when it melts. I don't know if I can grab some solder here. Okay. They have the brightness control under control, or is that perpetually going to be a non-available? What do you mean, Paul? Yeah, Sonia, I try to keep good conversation with chat. The purpose of, Lewis does a great job at teaching people too. Lewis is probably far more entertaining than I am, but I try to be as educational as I can so people understand what I'm doing and why I'm doing it. If I can grab the solder ball, I'm going to be doing good. I might have to put the stencil back on this thing if it... Stay there. There we go. Finally got our solder ball on there. It took way too long. Da-da-da-da. Hard to break away from work. I can agree with that. If that's what you're all talking about. It's when I worked from home, I found that it was very hard to put things down and not work on them at 1 a.m. in the morning. I know Lewis will stay at shop and work on stuff, but when you work from home, it's probably one of the hardest things to just step away from work every now and then. Any luck with iPhone X no touch? iPhone X no touch tends to be board separations. So what happens with the X is, since it's a two-part board that's stacked on top of itself, whenever they flex, whenever the frame flexes, it breaks the connection between the two boards. And when that occurs, you have to reball the two sections of boards together and possibly run jumpers. What temp and airflow? My temperature is 350 at 50% airspeed. I use a cheap-ass AU 852A++ because if you have more pluses behind it in China, it means it's better. My unit cost me $60 when I bought it, like 2 or 3 years ago, and I use it every day. It's been abused and put up wet, and it still loves doing work every day. Lewis uses a quick unit, which I like the quick units, but I can't throw away this unit if it still works properly. Okay, so my chip is reflowed. Give it a nudge, it comes back. On the iPhone 7s, you have to be very careful with your heat. On the opposite side of these is the baseband CPU, which is what controls your cell signal. And the CPU is also on the other side, right above that. The baseband CPU, if you get it too hot, will have searching no service, and then you'll have to flip the board over and redo the baseband chip. More pluses equals more. I mean, that's very true, Chuck. It's a common fact that if you have more pluses at the end of something, it's better. That's why when I leave reviews on eBay, I put at least 20 pluses after my A. TV bus overheating for that beard. Let me see the frame and screen. When we get to the TriStars, man. Are they next?
I don't think there are any TriStars.
You lied to me?
No, all those became shorts after we tested them.
Oh, that's right. Well, this should be easy shorts.
Well, I'm leaving those shorts here.
Okay, I'll do them on the trip.
Can you ship them back to me?
Hell yeah, I can. I'm shipping my pants right now.
Yay. Like tomorrow?
Yeah, I'm shipping them off.
Best. I don't care what.
I don't care what everybody says about you.
What Lewis says about you.
I don't care what Lucas says about you. Alright, so let's see if we did it correctly. If we did, this should boot up fairly quickly. iPhone 7 boot time is about half of what the 6 series is. Yeah, Josh, exactly. A+++++, good buyer. 100%, would buy again. Alright, so we should get a screen brightening here in a second. Alright, phone's on, so that's normal boot time. Password is not on here. Do we know the password?
All sevens.
Sevens. This guy's Russian. Alright, so voice memos is the way we test these. If audio IC is not working, this would be grayed out. We couldn't touch this. So when we press it, you can see it is now recording. Test, test, test. So we'll play that back. So when we press it, you can see it is now recording. Test, test, test. Okay, so we now have a working audio IC. So this board has been cured of lupus. It's the first recorded case of cured lupus on this stream. What's next, sir?
Board short.
Bird shirt.
And then do you want to do this?
What do I want to do? The watch?
Yeah. I want to show your review.
Yeah, we can show them that.
It's a special surprise.
Alright, so special surprise here. This is an iWatch screen replacement. So on the iWatches, they have an NFC module that is glued to the back of the screen. And it has two solder points that go to the antenna that runs across the back of the screen here. If you don't transfer these while doing a screen swap on the iWatch, after the Series 1, so the Series 2, 3, 4, and so on, if you don't transfer this, if you ever unpair this from one phone and try to pair it to another, it will not pair again. So if you transfer this NFC module, it allows this to pair again. So I'm just going to cut this one off. This one's already been taken off once. So this is like every video you see on YouTube where it looks way too easy. That's because it was. And it's because we've already done this one. I just had it adhesive back down. We put the wrong one on there. So this is your solder point here, and this is a solder point here. So instead of trying to solder these back because the screen is sensitive to heat, what I'm going to use is some electrically conductive glue, along with just some standard glue to hold that in place. So I've got, this one's called wire glue. I don't know if there's any like name brand electrically conductive glues, but this was just something I found on eBay. We're going to put a little bit on it on that solder point, and we're going to put a little bit on this solder point. So we have a little on both of those. Now I'm going to put a drop of adhesive on the opposite sides and knock everything off. Goddamn screws went everywhere. Good thing I don't need those. So just a tiny drop of adhesive here and a tiny drop of adhesive here. And you'll line the NFC module up with the edge of the back here. So it sits right there. And we just let the glue dry. And that's ready to go. So simple. If you do iWatch repairs, make sure you transfer the NFC module off the back of it. It's the far right module that has the little hook that goes to the frame. That hook attaches to a copper plate that goes around the edge of the screen. Paul D uses the C++. He does. Splash proof for iPhones. So iPhones we buy the seals for them. So these are the screen seals. They go around the frame. And apply good pressure on these after you put them on. And you can seal them back like factory. If you put them in like a OtterBox, just hard shell, the inner shell, and leave them, that'll put enough pressure down on that seal to kind of seal it up for you. The iWatches, we normally seal them with B7000 or E8000 or whatever number China gave it that week. Put a decent amount along the edge so when you put the screen down it seals completely, and that'll give you a waterproof seal again. We always recommend to customers that they don't intentionally try to get their phone wet because that's a stupid idea, period, but just in case they don't listen, we try to help them out.
Even with the factory waterproof seal?
Yeah, even factory seal, it's not waterproof. It's water resistant. You can look on Apple's website, it says it specifically. Alright, so what this phone is doing when you plug it in, it's hanging at 200 milliamps and it's not booting. I'll show you up here on my power supply what it's doing. So if you look on my power supply there, it's just kind of hanging around 200 milliamps. This is, well, now it's booting up. What are you doing here, phone? It was hanging at 200, now it's booting. It's still not normal. Let me see the screen for this.
Tried TriStar on that one.
He did do TriStar on it?
Yeah, he attempted.
Oh, well maybe that's why it's fucked up.
Check
Oh
it out.
yeah, he did. The shield's been taken off.
Sorry, I forgot to mention that.
That may be why it's drawing weird current then. So this one's had previous repair attempts. The current draw that's giving me is very off, which is why I was thinking it had a short, but it may not have a short. The chip's put on correctly. A lot of flux around it still. Let's just replace it for shits and giggles. So we've taken TriStar off. TriStar is also known as U2 because its designated spot on the iPhone 5 series was U2 position. It's no longer U2 anymore. It doesn't sit in that location. So, go ahead.
And it's pre-installed on your phone, just like the album.
Yeah, it's pre-installed on your phone, just like U2's album. So. This is called TriStar on the newer phones. They changed it to Hydra. I don't know if Apple has some type of mission, but they are now going with Hydra. Hail Hydra. So we've got our TriStar positioning cleaned up there. Just check and make sure none of these traces are cut. That one has a little wear on it, but it looks okay. Let's try a new chip on this. Yeah, we try to move quickly. Try to get stuff knocked out as fast as we can. So there's our new TriStar chip. You can see its balls. This is the one from the 7 series, but it is backwards compatible all the way down to the 5C series. So for those who are working on these phones, don't buy anything but the iPhone 7 TriStar. Unless you're working on a 5 series or an iPad mini, those use an A1608. And if you put one of these on there, it will cause a boot loop. It will charge the phone, but it will not boot up. So we're going to reflow that for a second just to get the solder and the flux to kind of harden a little bit against the pads. That way it doesn't move on me. Now you'll see it move once this melts. Okay, it moved into place a little. Okay, there we go. So TriStar is now on. Sorry if y'all can't see that. My field of view is about 30 or 40% wider than yours. Rapid cool technology. Get that back down to temperatures where we can work with it. Alright. Let me see the frame on that one. So before, this one was pulling a crazy voltage immediately. I want to see if it's still pulling that. If it is, we still have a secondary problem. Why is so as far as what? What's the question there, Ollie? Ricardo, good seeing you. Thank you for hanging out. Alright, so we're still pulling a crazy high voltage immediately. So this should be creating some heat. Which it feels like it is. Okay. So this is still making quite a bit of heat. It's pulling like 200-300 milliamps immediately, which is not correct. So I want to look around the board and see if I can see anything obvious that might be causing issues. This seems like it's going to be a partial short, which are kind of the worst ones to deal with. But the best thing to do is visually look over your board. Lewis does this with MacBooks. It's good to do with any of them. We want to look for any type of discolored caps. I almost feel like this is a NAND amp draw. It's just really weird. Let me check what VCC main resistance is. Hey Pierre Nov, how you doing? It's good to see you also. Okay, so VCC main is normal. It's about 0.3, which is correct. Let's check our NAND voltages. 0.4 seems okay. 0.2 seems okay. 0.2 seems fine, so it's not that. Let me check Tigris. That's normal. Is there any obvious damage here? This all looks okay. Any long screw? No long screw. I wouldn't think that would cause heat though either. Okay, this one's gonna be fun. Do you want to leave this one?
Can't.
Oh, we gotta take it with you. Alright. Well, give me a second, I'll see if I can find the heat. Hey, and good night. Good night, sir. Why is not rebooting with the iPhone 5? Ali, the iPhone 5 uses a TriStar of A1608 A1, and that revision is not compatible with the newer ones. I'm trying to see if I can feel any like instant draws of heat here as this tries to turn on. PMIC is getting warm, but that's because CPU is turning on. I see the screen. Let's see if there's like any graphical issues maybe. Maybe this is a chestnut issue, or I don't know, this is weird. Alcohol evaporation trick. If it was a constant draw without me applying a prompt to boot, I would agree with that move to put freeze spray or alcohol. But this one's not showing an instant draw. It's only once you prompt to boot. So in those situations, everything kind of gets hot because the CPU is warming up, which warms up most of the motherboard. I may have to just sit this with the TriStar connected, and TriStar will cause it to loop if I don't have a battery connected, and maybe I can find the heat signature that way because it's a prompt to boot, but it's not a full boot. CPU doesn't go through everything. I want to see if this will even fully boot. It's showing the Apple logo right now, but it's pulling about 200 milliamps higher than it should initially when booting, which is not good. And when it's charging, it's pulling about 150 milliamps higher than what it should, which means there's a secondary short somewhere. It's drawing power from something. Found something to keep you away from porn? This is porn. This is board porn. So I don't know if this is going to boot or not. Does not look like it is. How much did my scope cost? It was like $400. The camera was another $400. So this is not booting up, it's just hanging. The reason for hanging like that can be a secondary system is failing to turn on properly, so the CPU kind of waits for that to come up. In those situations, you'll have long boots or looping, or no boot at all at times. Let me grab a charge port for this, and I will test it a little further. Alright, so with the meter that I use, if I plug in with no battery, it will prompt TriStar to try to turn the phone on. And what I'm hoping is I can find secondary heat draw and a heat source before it gets too warm. We're going to use freeze spray since this is not an obvious short. Alcohol is not going to boil with this amp draw, but freeze spray may be able to show us some heat. So we're going to get that board nice and frosty. Stay frosty, board. Alright, so it's kind of frozen over. I'm going to plug it in. And I'm going to look for any type of heat signatures that show up. Hopefully we'll see something before it starts to melt the whole board. Not seeing anything yet. Oh, there we go. So PMIC has a melting point right here, so we need to mark that, so that can give us a hint. So PMIC has a ball grid array under it, and sometimes the BGA pattern will line up perfectly with possible shorts. So I'm going to pull up my board view software here. Unfortunately, Paul Daniels has not completed his for the iPhones because of availability of the actual schematics is pretty difficult. I will show you all this so you can see it. Let's see. Alright. This might be a crappy view, but it's all I got to work with, so I'm sorry. I run my software off of a secondary computer that I remote into. That way I have access to it on any computer. So it's not the best situation for navigation and for the streaming stuff, but it is what it is. It looks like it's making a double image on stream there. Oh, I see why. There we go. Alright, so this is ZXW. It's the board software we use for phones. If Paul Daniels ever gets his figured out, I'm definitely going to be looking into it. So we want the 6 Plus. And we're going to look at this. So this is our PMIC right here. And we were getting hot. If I can still see it. I tried to mark it before it thawed. I think it was right in here. I can't tell. Can't tell exactly where it was. I think it was right in that area. So it looks like it's on the center balls. So we can look around this area for possible shorts. So that's a 3v3 USB line. That line comes directly from the charger, I believe. Let me see if it shows where that goes. So that goes to a capacitor. Does it go anywhere else? It goes to the CPU and another capacitor. So that's part of the initialization for when you plug in the charger. The CPU has to know that the charger is there to also initialize. I don't believe that's going to be our problem, but I'll check it just to make sure. So we'll measure that for a short, if we can even reach it. It's under there, but we can reach it. So that measures 0.49, so that seems normal in diode mode. So I don't think that's our cause. Next to it, a 1v2 SD-RAM. So SD-RAM shorts are not fun at all. And we're going to hope that this is not our cause. So it's going to be one of these people here. Nope, that's 0.2, so that seems normal. PMU interrupt, that's a data line, that's a clock line. 3-volt TriStar. Now 3-volt TriStar can cause the phone not to turn on. Causes of this, these capacitors here, TriStar can cause it. There's also a spot up here that should have it. Yep, right there. I don't know that it goes anywhere else. Let me see. Okay, so it does go over here. Let's check. There was some damage to the line down here for that. Let's see if that is maybe messed up. And that is our problem. So the TriStar 3-volt line is dead short to ground. So that is our issue. If that line is shorted, that means you will not have TriStar communication. So we need to fix that, and this phone should boot. See you later. Center balls. Funny. Alright, so I'm going to take TriStar off just to ensure that it's not my placement of TriStar that has caused this short. It's always best to undo the last thing you did if you have a short. It is a possibility that I've created this, but I don't think I have because the symptoms match what they were prior to me replacing this. Alright, so TriStar's off. We'll recheck. So it is still shorted. So either side of this cap is short. One side is ground. So if we look here at ZXW, we can see the right side is supposed to be the power rail, and it is 0 ohm short to ground. So 0 ohm shorts normally occur on capacitors that have a path to ground. Any type of short must have a path to ground. So it can be any of these capacitors. It can be a chip. So the chips themselves can cause that. Let's see, what are you? So this is up near, is this home button power? Yeah, so this is the home button power chip. There's a good possibility that this is actually the cause. I've seen this before. So the home button power chip could be bad. This is a filter. More than likely it is not the cause of it. It does go to capacitors, but normally up here, for that to fail, there usually is physical damage related to that, and I don't see any physical damage. Usually what happens is that somebody will be screwing in the screw that goes through this screw hole right here, and they'll slip off and damage this, but this looks okay. I'm really thinking we have a home button power chip issue. So let's track that a little further. Okay, so I don't think it's PMIC Based on the appearance of the capacitor over here, I don't think it's the capacitor next to PMIC. I'm going to go ahead and pull the shield next to CPU. And I'm going to inject 3 volts into this line and see if that chip gets hot. Okay, so the CPU shield is off now. Let's look at our area. This is the chip that's possibly shorted. That little guy right there. I'm going to inject 3 volts into this filter up here, and we'll see what it does. I try to have stream up there for you all, or for you all to see live, so you could see both of them, but for some reason it's not working. I'm gonna switch back to the main view here. Chat is supposed to be right here, but for some reason it's not showing up. I've got the window selected, but I don't know, it's just not doing it. Whatever. You want popcorn? Alright, so let's solder to this filter here. I really kind of want to solder to this cap. I think it'll be a more reliable connection. That filter is such a small cross section. And I might have to use fairly thin wire here. Hopefully it's thin enough. This stuff is large compared to what I normally work with. But too thin of a wire, you'll heat your wire up before you actually heat up the short. So tin the end of that. I'm just going to apply some need to get it right up against that cap. It's a shitty joint. It's gonna break with any type of movement on it. So I need to get a better reflow on that. I'm trying to keep chat where I can see it, but did I freeze? Am I still moving? Lewis is happy looking at it. Yeah. Well, this wire is extreme overkill for what I'm doing right here. But it's all I got. The thin stuff is too thin.
What's the verdict?
I found the short and I'm going to try to remove it. Or I haven't found the short, but I know where the short is. I'm going to try to remove it.
Nice.
Once it's gone, it should boot up. So 3 volts. We'll start out at 1 amp. And we'll see. I think it's going to be this chip, so I'm going to go ahead and flip it over. I'm going to free spray it. course, it melted right away. Okay, 3 volts. Oh. There we go, 3 volts. Am I connected still? I'm not connected. Well, chip didn't get hot before it all melted on us. Increase the amperage just in case there is. Well, I don't know if I'm connected still or not. Nope, I'm not. Let's just take these caps off. Trying to get you out of here, sorry.
It's okay.
Okay, that's soldered back now. My cables are so short, it makes it hard to do this. Let's freeze spray again. Short's gone, or I'm not connected again. Okay, so the short is gone, so maybe it was our cap. You recheck that line. Yeah, we're no longer shorted. I don't know what I did with that capacitor. Maybe our capacitor was bad, the one we actually connected to. We'll leave it off and see how it acts. I'm going to put TriStar back on and retest it. No problem, Andrew. Thank goodness for enamel wire. Yeah, exactly. Alright, let's see how it acts now with TriStar. It's not uncommon to get trolled by these two. Sometimes you can have shorts that disappear and it was all because the capacitors were holding energy. Usually though, after testing them several times, they will dissipate that energy and the shorts will go away because there's no longer capacitive power. But I could have gotten trolled there, but it sure seemed like that was going to be it. Just because it matched up with our location of our heat coming from PMIC. You clean faces, stop messing with the beard. Truth. Alright, so let's see how it acts. Nope, that was it. So now the current draw, instead of being 200 milliamps immediately, is now starting off where it should normally be. And let's see if this boots up now. So by dumb luck, by breaking that capacitor and taking it off, that capacitor was actually the one that was at fault. I would have sworn it would have been the home button power management chip, like the power generation chip, because I've seen several iPhones with home button shorts that are generated from that chip itself. But this one was not the case. So let's see, before this phone would not charge. So let's see if we can see if it charges. If it does charge, we should be able to turn it on. It should boot all the way up. Nice beard, Lewis. Man, Lewis is going to be... He'll have to grow a beard when he gets back. I mean, I'll have to grow a beard when I get back. Okay, so now we have a charging logo, which before we did not. So this phone is now charging. I'm going to go ahead and bypass that because I don't know how dead this battery is, and I don't want you all to have to sit around and watch me sit here and wait for a battery to charge. So I'm going to hook it up to my power supply and see if it works. If it will boot all the way up. I got it.
Works?
I gotta see if it boots, but it charges now and it doesn't pull a crazy high amount.
That's why, ladies and gentlemen, Chris is the man. I drive an hour and a half once a week, sometimes twice, just to come visit him.
It's not just for that. He likes to fondle the unit.
The beard or the...
I mean, whatever you want to call the unit, man.
Oh, okay. But, for all your motherboard needs, phone-wise, he's the man.
Alright, so normal boot up voltages. So instead of jumping immediately to 300 milliamps, it goes to 80, then 100, then to 200, which is normal. And we'll see if this will boot all the way up.
Before, all we had was a hot plate.
Yeah, that's all we do. Chris Wong. Chris Wong is wife. That's racist.
Some people would find that offensive.
It was useful after all.
I'm one of those people.
You are offensive. You're a fence. If. So, will it boot? Or will I look like a jackass?
Oh, so that's Lewis.
Lewis. Hey, it booted! Woohoo! We have boot. Fan spin. We need fan spin in the chat right now. Everybody spin your fans around in inappropriate ways. Shake your fan at Lewis.
Yes, the best handies in Bowling Green.
Best handies.
Now, I've been to Louisville a couple times, but nothing compares.
Nothing. He gives you one-on-one hand job experience. The name's Job. Hand job. Now, will it bend? Oh, it'll definitely bend.
Blend.
Oh, blend. Did it say bend? Or, oh, it was blend. Oh, it definitely
Yeah,
blends
from
too.
that one guy who has a blending YouTube channel.
Does he? Is that the guy? No, it's not.
That's not him.
I like the will it crush or will it press or whatever the fuck it is.
The guy with the hydraulic press?
Yeah, I like seeing plastic things turn into.
That guy's a real piece of work.
I just want to buy a press now and make videos squeezing shit. I want to make millions of dollars with a piece of equipment that costs a few thousands.
Does he make millions? I
mean, I'd say several of his videos have over 1 million views. If you've got enough subscribers, you get $2-3 per 1,000 views. So. Calm down, Seal.
David, would you like me to answer
He can, yeah. Move
How's
fan
muted
away
if
from
you
mic
have a
rumble.
copy?
Sorry.
It's not good.
The fan rumble is necessary for my working.
Chris is on live on YouTube or Facebook.
YouTube, Twitchy. I don't know what else Lewis
Are you
has.
still meeting David for your late night rendezvous?
Yep.
He said yes.
I'll be done here in a minute. Stream's about to be down.
Alright.
I think this is probably going to be our last repair.
I gotta head home.
Meet me at the rendezvous
I would
point.
though. Love you though.
Meet me at the rendezvous point.
I will. Don't you worry.
Rendezvous.
But
Here's your paper.
thank you, sir.
All right.
Very much.
Time. That speed run is done. Wasn't really a speed run. But anyway, I think that's going to conclude my stream for Lewis. Hopefully you all enjoyed yourself. Hopefully it was somewhat entertaining and not completely boring. Lewis will be back probably next week, I think. I'm not sure. I'll have to ask him. If he wants me to stream again, I will. If you all enjoyed it, leave a thumbs up. Maybe that'll give him some encouragement to have me back on. If you didn't like it and you thought the beard was ridiculous, give it a thumbs down. It won't hurt my feelings. I probably will never see you again. But where to find me? Where to find me? You can check out my YouTube channel. I'll be uploading again in July. It's a little far away, but we'll be doing it. If you all have any questions on iPhone repairs, I've got like hour-long videos. I don't edit them. I'm sorry, they're terribly long, but I try to go over the same stuff that I did today, so you all can kind of learn it with me. Thank you again, Lewis, for giving me the platform to stream on. He's been extremely helpful, and he deserves every bit of credit that he gets on here. But thank you all, and thanks for tuning in. And I don't know what the hell Lewis says when he signs off. I can never remember. Something about hope you learned something or something like that. Save the whales. Save the whales. Lupus doesn't exist. Everybody have a good night, and I will maybe see you all sometime this week if Lewis wants me back. Later.